Neuromancer is a 1984 work of science fiction by the American-Canadian author William Gibson. Born in South Carolina in 1948, Gibson began writing short stories in the late 1970s, mainly dystopian science fiction, with a focus on cutting-edge technology. On the basis of that, he was eventually commissioned to write a full-length novel. He set about the task with trepidation, redrafting the first two-thirds of Neuromancer 12 times, and convinced that its eventual reviews would be dreadful. In the event, it became the first novel ever to win all three top science fiction awards, the Hugo, the Nebula, and the Philip K. Dick, consolidating a genre called cyberpunk, which had begun in the late 1970s. Gibson was the first author to use the term cyberspace in its current designation. It had been around since the 1960s, but solely as a visual arts expression. Neuromancer is largely set in cyberspace. What makes it an outstanding novel is above all its world creation. All fiction writers have to flesh out a world for their characters to inhabit. Even realism requires specific locations populated with particular items of stage scenery. Science fiction and fantasy arguably require a greater effort because there's a greater chance of inconsistency. It's rare for a writer to be able to invent an entire new world and an extensive new vocabulary to go with it. Neuromancer does that. Case's virus runs a representative passage at board a window through the library's command ice. He punched himself through and found himself in an infinite blue space ranged with color-coded spheres strung on a tight grid of pale blue neon. In the non-space of the matrix, the interior of a given data construct possessed unlimited subjective dimension. A child's toy calculator, accessed through Case's Sendai, would have produced limitless gulfs of nothingness, hung with a few basic commands. It isn't all like that, of course, but much of it is. It requires as much concentration as many modernist novels, and in lots of ways it is a modernist novel. It uses language as a way of exploring amplified features of the present-day world. Once you've stripped away its world-specific features, however, its storyline and its characters are reasonably conventional. We have a down-on-his-luck hacker called Case who's been biologically excluded from the Matrix, defined as a consensual hallucination experienced daily by billions of legitimate operators after he stole from his employers. A man called Armitage offers him permanent re-entry if he'll carry out a heist, the exact nature of which he temporarily conceals. Case teams up with a woman called Molly, whose body's been augmented to make her more effective in combat, plus a group of Rastas living in a separate, ideal community called Zion. That will, of course, remind many people of the Wachowskis' 1999 film, The Matrix. Neuromancer was one of the inspirations for the film, but its world is a lot more complex, and the story is very different. In The Matrix, we simply have a cyberspace into which humans can insert themselves. In Neuromancer, we have that, plus humans getting into each other's minds, plus the idea that a particularly powerful artificial intelligence could apparently raise the dead. At the novel's conclusion, we even edge towards Teilhard de Chardin's notion of an omega point, a metaphysical unity at the end of time. Nevertheless, when William Gibson saw The Matrix, with characteristic generosity, he described Neo, its central character, as my favourite ever science fiction hero. Anyway, Neuromancer isn't a philosophical novel. Its enduring importance lies in its relative uniqueness. How, one might ask, can any novel be so linguistically sophisticated while still feeling as if it was written for the kinds of people who don't normally read novels? I don't know. You tell me.